What we are talking about now is after the handshake, which I supported. The handshake, I participated. What we are simply saying is we were meant to build bridges across communities and amongst the leadership of this republic. Have we succeeded in ensuring there is an understanding amongst the leaders? Have we succeeded in ensuring there is an understanding amongst communities? Have we succeeded in ensuring that the various political groupings generally agree on the overall agenda for the republic, especially to ensure we remain in peace and that elections are done properly? I think there is a problem there, that although the ODM leader, who was the presidential candidate for NASA, agreed with the Jubilee Party leader, there was a fallout within Jubilee, and there is a fallout within NASA. And if that's the two areas, every one of them lost their key supporters, I don't think we have made the progress that we desired. The only thing that we have made progress on, and I would like us to differentiate between BBI, the initial idea of bringing an understanding across the various divides in the Republic, and the constitutional amendment bill 2020. I think that one, a lot of it, I can say, is a good move. It's moving towards ensuring Kenya has the correct development structures, and then we ensure that resources are properly shared. I think that, in my view, is the case. There are a few issues that we cannot quite say have done right. I would like us to look at the political play and ensure that we go back to what we were looking for. Can we have a national conference to bring back an understanding? Or what do we do? But at the moment, we are not critiquing the performance or otherwise of either the various administrations that we believe. As it is, ODM has participated a lot in the second Jubilee administration. So we really don't know whether this administration is Jubilee or it is ODM, or it is an alliance between ODM and Jubilee. Therefore, maybe that is why Jagoyo is going back to the 2013-2017. Why don't you tell us something a little bit more about 2018 to 2020, Mona Jagoyo?
Thank you. Right. Allow me to just leave it at that, what you've raised, unless you have other rejoinders, but we are strapped for time. I want us to gravitate to other topics as well. And Isaac, don't go away. We need you as well to also chime in on this particular development. Last week, we saw this particular threat from the vice chair of Jubilee Party, David Murathe, who said that there is or is serving an eviction notice to Deputy President William Ruto that, yes, he will be evicted from his current residence. And we saw he made good also of his promise to ouster the deputy chair as well of Jubilee Party. This is Caleb Kositani as well. That happened yesterday. He said that particular eviction party is loading. My question to our panelists this evening is, don't you think this is sort of a denigration to the character of the office of the deputy president, as it were? And what does the Constitution say regarding, the office of a deputy president when it comes to his residence? We know the State House, of course, that is a constitutional, house, as it were. But does the Constitution also remain mealy-mouthed as far as the residency of the deputy president is concerned? Does that particular office, as it were, deserve respect? And no one else can just willy-nilly call it, call and say, we can evict you. What sort of message are we sending to the public that, yes, the deputy president is just any other person? Has he become a persona non grata, as it were, right now? We have also reports that there is, and I don't know, maybe members of parliament like Jeremiah Kione can tell us, there is a plan that will have a parallel office so that the office of the deputy president will become, sort of a moribund office, functionless office. And we've seen that really happening as it were right now. Most of its function has been taken away from the docket.
Dibal, the reality of the matter is regardless of what jurisdiction you are in, including the first world countries, including the United States of America, which is the mother of constitutions, the role of a deputy president or a vice president in their case is a very, very tricky position. It is, you do not have any role in the Constitution right now in terms of your functions. Your functions are as determined by the president. That's why they say a deputy president or a vice president, even in the case of the United States of America, is such an unfavorable job. It's the ability for somebody to sit on a block of ice with his pants down and pretend that he's enjoying the experience. If you read the history of one of the most powerful American presidents, I say powerful because I know what he did for the civil rights and the emancipation, LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, who came in after the death of JFK, John F. Kennedy. He was contemplating until the last minute to resign from the position because he had no role. And he'd been pushed around by the brother, Bobby Kennedy, who was Attorney General, a 33-year-old young man who, brilliant mind, of course, and everything. So what I'm basically trying to say is that, yes, that position is always a very tricky position. And the way, the real executive itself, the presidency, is the president. And you're only in the presidency to the extent which you do what that president wants you to do. Now, in the event that the deputy president tries to do differently and run a parallel system to the president, constitutionally, you can only take him out if there is an impeachment.
Yep.
And that has got to have a very big threshold. But what the president can do is literally to ground you. And this is exactly what they're doing right now. Very bad. I don't support it myself at all. I don't think it's the right thing to do, to try and what do you call, do such things to a sitting deputy president. But the reality of the matter is that that is how systems by and large work, but not to the extent of chasing somebody from his own official residence. That chasing of from the official residence, in my opinion, is going too far, and it's not right for that to happen. But you can literally strip him of all the powers, all the functions that were given to him by the president in the first place, and keep him there as a lame duck. That is acceptable. Because when you look at the Constitution right now and see the provision, the functions of a deputy president, it is there at the behest, at the pleasure, and at the direction of the president. But of course, you cannot sack him unless you go through a process.
All right. Let's hear from Jeremiah.
Yeah, I think it is not a good thing to talk about evicting the deputy president from his official residence. I certainly know that that is not the party position because irrespective, he is still the holder of the office of the deputy president, and that's a constitutional office. But having said that, I want to agree with what the former deputy speaker has said, that the deputy president serves, really is the principal assistant to the president, and he can only do the works assigned to him by the president. There are no duties given to him by the Constitution. And this needs to get clearer to Kenyans, that when you decide to become a deputy president or a deputy governor, then you have to wait to do what you are told to do by either the president or the governor. And in the event that you are told to do nothing, then you do nothing. Because that is what the Constitution was about. Remember how this position was created, and down memory lane. The President of the Republic of Kenya, back during the KANU days, after Mzee Kenyatta, we had, I think it was 1997 elections or thereabout, and he was supposed to pick a vice president immediately after he has, after you win the elections, under the old Constitution. And President Moi then chose to remain without a vice president for almost 2 years. Yeah. And one time when he was driving along Naivasha Road, he said, if appointing the vice president to add a plate of food on your table, then I've appointed Saitoti to be your vice president. And when we now got an opportunity to rewrite our constitution, it was in total agreement. Everybody agreed that that is the last thing that we would ever want to be treated to again as a country. So we actually said, henceforth, we must know who is our deputy president in the event that something happens to the president. Allow me to finish the bar. Yeah, you rush me quite often, and I don't know why you have a liking for Midiwo tonight. You seem to like him more than what I'm saying. But and he also has a command of English. I just want to give everyone a fair chance because also we have Isaac. So for that reason, we created the position of the deputy president. But we were also careful. If you give constitutional functions to the deputy president, you've created two centers of power. And you cannot do that because that is you're creating a constitutional office. Thank you. I mean a constitutional crisis. But I want to say that the BBI recognizes that office still exists as it is under the constitution. Thank you. So it requires to be respected as such, but the deputy president cannot again undertake the role of undermining the president as part of his daily duties. Let's hear from Midiwo.
Deval, first of all, I'm so happy that you brought my friend Isaac. Isaac and I were on, we were in a committee called Devolution at Bomas. So for 35%, Isaac, please, just support this. But I wanted to say this. You know, politics is about perception. I think the president's men are wrong to even insinuate that the law does not exist that protects the deputy president. He may be so wild, he may do all those things, but he is the deputy president of Kenya. I mean, his badness could have been known during 2017 or 2013. If it's that bad. But please don't do those things because they will do it to the next holders of the office.
Thank you. Right. Let me just get also a parting shot from Isaac Ruto on that particular development. You've had what, of course, our panelists have said. You know about this particular declarative statement that was made by David Murathe. Your reaction, briefly, sir, as we're winding up.
Yeah, I think I agree with Farah and a number of our colleagues that, look, the office of the deputy president is constitutional. And as long as the president has not breached any part of that constitution in assigning him duties, or when he doesn't assign him duties, that's okay. But the moment he allows an attack, which is physical or personal, and which is not through the procedures established, that is through impeachment, then that would be an affront on the office of the president himself. It is like an attempt at a coup to actually evict a deputy president. That is absolutely, I think it is treasonable. It should be understood as such, because the Constitution is very clear on how to establish and treat the office of the deputy president. You can only withdraw certain parts. You can withdraw some security. You can even lower whatever you want to do, but you cannot actually physically touch him. You can't even hold him to court unless through a clear procedure that is understood as provided for by the Constitution. So even Murathe is completely out of order to mention that he has got intention to even the deputy president or even to touch him. No, that one would become a very serious constitutional crisis. The office of the deputy president is protected as long as the tenure of the deputy president is on. The deputy president and the deputy president is one office. Only that the deputy president is assigned duties by the president. So it is in order when he's not assigned any duties. I don't know who was trying to refer to the ages of Kano. That was a vice president who was also given an executive office. This particular constitution says the deputy president cannot hold any other executive office. He cannot be a minister of state or minister for home affairs like it used to happen in the Kano days. But the dignity of the deputy president remains protected by the same constitution, and therefore, even expectations are that he will be allowed to operate as long as he also operates within the parameters that is allowed within the law. I think he has kept saying that he is loyal to the president. Now, I don't know how far that loyalty can be mentioned, but the point here is he has been saying, he has been talking about the agenda that his administration has with the president.
Thank you.
So those issues, I think, are a little bit. I think Murathe is definitely out of order to go beyond that. He can handle Jubilee party. He can even refuse to attend Jubilee meetings. Jubilee is Murathe's business and the other. But when it comes to the actual state sanctions, Murathe has no role, absolutely. He's my good friend and an old colleague, and we've been working together well with him. But I'll tell him he's completely out of order when he goes beyond Jubilee. He should stick to the Jubilee agenda. He can even flout the Jubilee constitution, but he dare not go anywhere near the Kenya constitution or the province reserved to both parliament or the president himself.
All right, thank you very much, Isaac Ruto there. Maybe as we are winding up, the ouster of Caleb Kositani as well, which was done yesterday as the vice deputy chair of Jubilee Party as well. Is this a harbinger and a bellwether of what is to come as well? That yes, we can see it's a build-up of maybe a strategy from the Jubilee administration that we want to purge, and fumigate the Jubilee Party at the dissidents. Because we know right now UDA has a pact with the Jubilee, is a constituent of the Jubilee Party, as it were. At great loss to understand, is there a violation of a memorandum of understanding? If there was agreement, then who is violating this particular agreement? And what is the nature of this agreement?
Can I just say...
Is it a gentleman's agreement? Do we have anything on paper that can be used as a stitch of evidence? Briefly, you've got only 10 minutes
briefly,
to go.
Yeah, briefly. I just want to bring in one very important piece of information here. Which is, you see, in the US, you have the White House as the official residence of the presidency. The deputy president and the vice president of the US is actually housed in a place, it's called number 1 Observatory Circle in Washington, D.C. It's an official residence. It's located north of the White House. He's not allowed to do tours. You know what I mean? He's not allowed to be, meet crowds in that place. It is not supposed to be in any way be seen to be undermining the presidency of the country. So I'm talking about does not offer public tours. It's not even allowed to offer public tours. Nobody knows about the official residence of the Vice President of the United States of America. So in a sense, the indication, the reason why it was done that was to eliminate the possibility of a contestation within that because of the security of a tenure. The president cannot sack the vice president, but the vice president or the deputy president in this case has got to follow a choreographed way, a seriously choreographed way in which he is going to conduct his own public affairs. Coming back to
Do you want me to say something before you come back to that the same?
Yes.
And it's just to add to what he has said, that the office of the deputy president, one, the dignity of that office, why the president must respect it and ensure that it continues, must be upheld by the holder of that office, by ensuring that you actually do not don't become a center of discomfort in the country. And why it was created, just like it was in the US, was to ensure that there is stability in the country. In the event that we death of the president, we don't have to go through another general election of an uncertainty in the country. We have a person who come into the office of the president and then function as the president. But for as long as we have a president, it's like you are completely absent. We know you are somewhere, and that is the way it is supposed to be. But when you now become the center where you're receiving delegations, you have started another political movement from that point, issuing statements that are contradictory to the presidency, I think that you have lost
You've lost the plot. Right.
I disagree with both, because these people should have vetted Ruto.
They should have what?
They should have vetted William Samoei. They did not. And between the three of us, or amongst the three of us,
Yes,
it's only Jeremiah Kioni who sits in parliament. They have not defined the role of a deputy president. So I think it's wrong to rant
It's
about
defined
it.
in the Constitution.
No,
He's
no,
there
it
as a
says
personal
yes. No,
assistant
no,
and
no.
the direction
Yes.
and the pleasure of the president. I mean, that's where it is all over.
Yeah,
Unless you want to...
Yeah, but you must...
So does it mean that if, yes, I'm deputizing the president, I have
Kamala
no...
Harris, you have
I have no, my own head to make opinions?
No,
yes.
no.
And suggestions?
Unless you're given, for example, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was a very powerful vice president in America. But that was because the Bush, Bush Senior, allowed him that leeway.
Thank you.
If you're going to be allowed the leeway by the president...
Deba,
yes, please.
We are not in America. The thing is, tell Jeremiah Kioni to go...
The wisdom behind it is the important thing.
Try to put an
up.
enabling law. Caleb Kositany, you cannot disrespect the president, who is the party leader of Jubilee, and expect to survive. I think that was a move long overdue.
Thank you. I have also Isaac Ruto as we are winding up. Isaac, I just want to give you also a spotting chance for, your closing statements or parting shots. Briefly.
Yes, I think it's important that we maintain constitutional decorum and some way of functioning as a country. And I think the role of the deputy president should never have been exalted in the past 5 years of this implementation of this constitution, because that created a false impression as to the functions of that office, which the constitution did not actually provide for. And therefore, I think that's why we have an opportunity to look at how we structured our governance. I want to point out that, for example, there has been serious disconnect between the government and the people of Kenya, because we opted for ministers who are not elected, and they are therefore never connected to the people of Kenya. Therefore, the only two principals who are connected to the people of Kenya through an election is the president and the deputy president. So when the two disagree, there is no group in between that can try to moderate or even provide a reasonable semblance of carrying the country in an orderly way. Because all of them are employees of the two. They are not leaders of this republic. The cabinet secretaries are completely out of place, and they hardly care about what happened in rural Kenya. I think that is the benefit we are going to have when we make such an amendment to ensure that Parliament, members of Parliament are actually ministers, and therefore we expect better governance as we move forward.
Thank you, Isaac Ruto. We have to wind up at this particular moment. Time has ticked up to a point where we can't continue the conversation, but I want to thank my panelists as we're winding up, Farah Maalim, Jeremiah Kioni, and Midiwo as well for that very delectable conversation we've had. A lot of issues we've not really covered, especially the upcoming by-elections in that will be in Matubu, Kabuchai, and also in London Ward, and also in the Eastern region as well, where you're fielding a candidate as well. Thank you very much for your valid company, and your reactions on Twitter, I can see them, are really encouraging as well. I cannot be able to sample all of this, but nonetheless, we'll continue with the conversation next week, and I'll also press for time so that we can have more time and have a very also deep, engaging discussion as well. Nonetheless, have a good evening.